Hello, everyone, and welcome to Seeing the Big Picture with Galileo's Comprehensive Assessment System. I'm Nancy Auslander, Field Services Coordinator for Assessment Technologies, Galileo K-12 Online. Today, we're going to learn about what makes an assessment system comprehensive. What makes a benchmark series comprehensive? I'll show you reports that both teachers and administrators use to learn about student standards mastery, performance and risk, and growth. And I'll demonstrate just a few of the features and tools that Galileo provides to administrators to integrate educator evaluation tools with Galileo data. First, what makes a system comprehensive? A comprehensive system is going to include standards-aligned assessments for benchmarks, pre-tests and post-tests, formative or classroom tests, final course exams, and instructional effectiveness rating scales. It should include a standards-aligned instructional resource grouping, including Khan Academy lessons. We also have our own instructional dialogues or assignments. There should be reporting and data analysis to guide differentiated instruction. ATI uses item response theory psychometric analysis to give you developmental level or scaled scores, also known as DL scores, to help you track growth and risk. And Galileo includes instructional effectiveness tools, reports, and score compilers for educator evaluation. Now, specifically, what makes an assessment comprehensive? In the Galileo Comprehensive Blueprint Assessment Series, or CBAS assessments, we create our items from our own secure benchmark library to ensure that items that appear on benchmarks don't also appear on any formative test or quiz you might give in your classroom. Each assessment has approximately 45 items per test. It should take students about 45 to 60 minutes to complete an assessment, which is usually a typical classroom period. There are up to 5 tests per series. That includes the pre-test and post-test, and up to 3 interim benchmark assessments that you can administer on your own schedule. It could be quarterly or a mid-year with your pre-tests and your post-tests, depending on how much testing you'd like to put your students through. All these tests in the series assess all the standards that will be evaluated on your state summative. So you will be looking at all the standards that you might see on that state test in the spring, but you're assessing them all year long. There are also other assessment options, including audio tests for early literacy and early math for kindergarten and first graders. There's also access to our formative item banks for teachers to build their own final course examinations, formative tests and quizzes, and staff can also incorporate and administer any pre-existing tests they have on hand using our automated scoring key tool. All right, so let's jump in and look at Galileo. So here I'm looking at a teaching dashboard. You can see I've logged in as a district user, which gives me overall view of pretty much all the tools available in Galileo without having to log in as a teacher, a site administrator, or a district user. I figured this was a one-size-fits-all login for us to look at. And you can see here we're looking at a 5th grade classroom from one of our demo school sites in a district called ATI Demo School District. And we have several activities already scheduled for this classroom, some results already sitting on the dashboard ready to be looked at. But I can see here that I do have a benchmark assessment scheduled, and this will be assessing all the standards that will be assessed by the school district. And I'd like to see what that test is evaluating. What is the test blueprint? And what do the item parameters look like? And by clicking on the Reports tab and looking at test properties, I can run a test blueprint report. And here you see the report for that CBAS 1, which shows all the standards, the numbers of questions that will appear on the test, how many points student can earn, and the weighting of the standards. About 40% are looking at reading standards for literature, 46% looking at informational text, and then we've got another 13% looking at language standards. For the item parameters, you get a little deeper view into what each standard, what each question is going to look like as far as discrimination, difficulty, and guessing factors. These are the some of the factors that go into how we analyze your data to give you that DL or scaled score once our analysis is completed by our research team. This helps identify student ability, and these also help demonstrate growth once we have those scores. But now I'm going to go back to the dashboard, and you can see there's just a quick little shortcut on the shortcut bar that's going to take me back to the dashboard. And I'm going to actually look at how teachers and administrators use the data, starting with raw data. And we can use raw data before it's been analyzed to look at standards mastery. One of the primary reports is the intervention alert. The intervention alert is going to show you the standards that were evaluated, and teachers can look at the standards mastery. There is a key up here using a scale that is used by the school district. It is a 2 to 6 level scale that school districts can choose to use to demonstrate to the teachers whether or not students have demonstrated mastery. And this is based on raw scores, and students would have to get 60% of the questions correct to demonstrate mastery on any one of the standards that was evaluated. So in this case in particular, there were 5 questions. Students would need to get 3 correct. Teachers can look at these standards and see, okay, we can look at what's already been taught and see what gaps I may need to fill in for some students by creating an intervention group and scheduling activities or quizzes for the students. And the tools are right here on the report at the bottom. You have a quiz builder to generate and schedule a quiz, or an assignments button to schedule an assignment, either an assignment designed and published by Galileo, or Khan Academy, or any lessons you happen to have on hand that you've incorporated. The other thing teachers can do is look ahead to standards they have not covered yet, because they may be able to see that students already have a foundation for those standards, and they can adjust their instruction, differentiate their instruction in response to that foundation that students are already demonstrating. Another report on the dashboard, you can see I'm just going to lickety-split, go back to the dashboard. It's the detailed analysis. The detailed analysis, rather than looking at the test as a whole, you're going to be able to look at the individual items and how students responded to them to see what you can do about how students respond to certain item types. So when this loads up, we're going to see the detailed analysis. You see the standard and how the students responded. I'm going to scroll down to question number 3, where we had 72% of the students answered it correctly, but 27% did not. I can click on that 27% and see who those students are. And to see what it is about that question that may have led to the students answering incorrectly, I can click on the standard and actually look at the question. See what that distractor is about answer B that confuse the students. Sometimes they may have to look at vocabulary or the instructions themselves for the questions so that next time students encounter a question of this type, they're better prepared to interpret what they need to do in order to respond correctly. I'm going to close that, and I'm going to go back to the dashboard. And you can see that these tests have been administered. We updated this data just over the last couple of days. But if you scroll down to the bottom, there are a couple of other reports that you're going to be able to run based on the developmental level scores, those DL scores that are calculated by our research team using that item response theory psychometric analysis to give you those scaled scores so that we can track risk and growth. Let's start with the risk level summary. The risk level summary shows up, I prefer the graph view, because it is an actionable report that shows me the students who are on course. These are students who passed all 3 of my benchmarks. Students in this low risk category have passed 2 out of 3. In the moderate category, we have students who passed only 1 of the 3, and students at high risk did not pass any of the benchmark assessments. And I can click on this and look at all risk levels, or I can choose to look at a particular risk group. I'm going to look at the 5 students in the moderate category just by simply clicking on that bar. And I'm going to get a report that looks very similar to the intervention alert I just showed you. But instead of showing the standards and the number of questions, what you see is the students at moderate risk. What do I need to do for the standards where students displayed moderate risk? I can schedule an assignment or a quiz by selecting the standards I want to provide instruction for the 5 students. And then what I could do to move these students from low risk to on course. I can click between the risk levels. I will eventually get the high risk group and all risk levels combined. And there you go. Now, also in this risk level summary is the benchmark results, where you can see the test results for all 3 assessments side by side. You can see there have been 3 tests. You see the cutoffs for the performance levels. These performance levels are going to be the same performance levels you're going to see on your state summative. So in this particular case, the minimum passing for the meets category is 888 on this one, 1022 on this one, and 1100. You can see the students' performance on each test side by side and whether or not they're on course for passing that state summative. Hovering on each student's results will also show you the raw scores. Let's go back to the dashboard. And let's look at the aggregate multitest, which is a graphic representation of data that drills down. So in the reports menu, we can look at test sets at the aggregate multitest. I can aggregate it for schools or a class simply by selecting the schools I want to include. I could select all of them. I can select my library and pick the tests I want to look at. And once I've selected my tests, I can choose to run it displaying risk levels or to display benchmark performance levels. I happen to be one who prefers benchmark performance levels. And if I run the report, you can see that I get my performance levels for all schools that administered these 5th grade tests. See the numbers and percentage of students in each performance category. And if I want to drill down, I simply click on View Detail, and I can drill down and look at the schools. I can look at I can also drill all the way down to the classroom level. And then I can see the students side by side, just like we saw in that benchmark results. So here we're going to end up seeing Mr. Barrett's class with some links to some additional reports you can run. If we were to run this with the risk levels, it would look similar, but instead of having that exceeds, meets, etc., we now have the risk levels. Now going back to the dashboard, teachers can also look at the growth for their students. It's going to show up as a scatter plot that's going to plot growth and achievement all in one easy graph. So looking at this class, we have the first quarter math and the third quarter math. We expected the students, I'll scroll down a little bit. We expected the students to grow 212 points between this first quarter assessment and third quarter. Demo data, not real, just so you know. So that is indicated by this red line. Any student that grew at least 212 points or more is going to be to the right of this line. Students who did not will be to the left. Students who met the minimum cut score of 1,100 points, again, that's that DL score, that scaled score, are going to be above this green level. And of course, everyone's goal is to get everybody in this top right quadrant, growing and achieving. And you can see who the students are in each quadrant. Here in the low achievement, low growth quadrant, we have 5 students, and we can look at those 5 students and see who they are, and we can create an intervention group if we want to assign some materials and assignments or quizzes for these students. And because Galileo is comprehensive, teachers do have access to resources from kindergarten through 12th grade. So if you need to dip down for a little more remediation, you can dip down and help these students. By the same token, for your students in your high growth, high achievement, you can create an intervention group and reach up to a higher grade level to give them some enrichment or challenge material to work with. So you can serve all of your population in your classroom. This report also shows a teacher's growth maintenance. This teacher has maintained expected growth, which leads us to tools that are available to integrate your educator evaluation with our data. There are 2 more dashboards. One is for school performance, where you're going to see categorical growth, where that maintained, not maintained, and exceeded rating now populates for your staff. And you can see here, I'm looking at all 6 of the 5th grade teachers. All the students are indicated on this chart. And you can see that there are 3 teachers that maintained, 3 that did not. I can look at the list of all the teachers and click on the teacher's graph to see their classroom dashboard, student growth and achievement report, like we just saw on the teaching dashboard. And again, this teacher maintained expected growth. Now, once we've got that categorical growth, we can go to the instructional effectiveness dashboard. Now, please note, we're going to cover this in more detail in the next webinar on June 16th on instructional effectiveness tools. But we do have a score compiler that can be used for your teacher ratings, your educator evaluation. We do have score compilers, which will take all the components of your educator evaluation program and compile those scores into a single rating to rate your teachers as effective, highly effective, or whatever your scale is. This one happens to include categorical growth and a teacher performance evaluation based on classroom observations. Okay, that covers everything in Galileo that I wanted to cover. So let's move on to questions and answers. And I have a few questions. Let's see. When do teachers see results? When you test your students online, your raw results are immediately populated. Otherwise, if you're using bubble sheets, when you do scan those bubble sheets, that's when the results will populate, your raw results. Once your testing is complete, it'll take about 5 to 7 business days for our research team to go in and complete the analysis. And how do administrators run data school-wide or district-wide? As I showed you earlier on that dashboard, or when running the reports, you can choose to select school and select just the campuses or sites you'd like to include in your report, or you can select class and aggregate your data at a single site by selecting the classrooms. And that seems to be all the time I have for answering questions. But I do want to thank you for taking the time today to join me, and I hope you have a better understanding of Galileo's comprehensive assessment system. Again, a recording of the webinar will be sent to you in a follow-up e-blast and will also be posted on the ATI website. And if you're interested in scheduling a personalized demonstration for you and your staff, here's how to contact me or any one of ATI's other field service coordinators. You can call our toll-free number. You can send us an email at galileoinfo@ati-online.com. Or you can send a request directly from our website by clicking on the link in the top right corner of our homepage. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook. I do hope you'll join us again for our upcoming webinars. The first one is Curriculum Development on Tuesday, May 24th, followed by Instructional Effectiveness Tools on Thursday, June 16th. Again, thank you, and we look forward to hearing from you.